And welcome to The World This Week with Alicia Edwards, a look back at some of the biggest global news stories for an international city, brought to you by the London Live News team. On the way this morning, as we enter the third week of conflict in Ukraine, Russian forces target new areas of eastern Ukraine after a fatal attack on a maternity hospital in Mariupol. Those fleeing the country are welcomed in Germany as the first train of refugees arrives in Hanover from Poland. And in the midst of war, this, the moment a bunker falls silent, viewed by millions online. That's all on the way before 7:30 as the conflict in Ukraine moved into its third week. At the time of recording, these were some of the latest lines from the conflict. 3 Russian airstrikes hit the important industrial city of Dnipro in eastern Ukraine on Friday, killing at least one person. The strikes hit near a nursery school and apartment buildings. This is the first direct attack on the city since the Russian invasion. In this footage, firefighters can be seen battling one blaze after a strike hit a shoe factory. On this map, these are the areas believed to be under Russian control. The striped areas are the locations where Russia has launched attacks but do not control. In an overnight address into Friday, Ukrainian President Zelensky denied Russia's accusation that Ukraine is preparing to fight back with chemical or biological weapons. He said the accusation itself was a bad sign. The scene after a Russian airstrike hit a maternity hospital on Wednesday in the besieged port city of Mariupol. 3 people, including a child, were killed in the attack, according to the city's council. President Zelensky accused Russia of war crimes.
Today, we must be united in condemning this war crime of Russia, which reflects all the evil that the occupiers have brought to our land, all of the destroyed cities and everything they've done. An aerial bomb on the maternity hospital is the conclusive evidence that what is happening is a genocide of Ukrainians, Europeans. You won't be able to say that you didn't see what happened to Ukrainians in Mariupol. You saw, you know. Consequently, you must strengthen sanctions against Russia so that it never has the chance to continue this genocide. You need to pressure Russia so that it sits at the negotiation table and ends this barbarous war.
President Zelensky there. It's understood as many as 1,200 people have died in the siege of the city of 430,000. A communal grave was opened on Tuesday as authorities struggled to cope with the need for burials. During a press conference on Thursday, the Russian foreign minister dismissed outcry over the deadly bombing of the hospital in Mariupol as pathetic. Mariupol is experiencing the worst humanitarian conditions in Ukraine, according to officials. Residents have been trapped for days in freezing temperatures without electricity. With water supplies cut, people have been collecting water from streams or melting snow. Power cuts mean that many residents have lost internet access and now rely on their car radios for information, picking up news from stations broadcast from areas controlled by Russian separatist forces. Theft has become widespread for food, clothes and even furniture. This shopkeeper asks, why are you stealing everything? Ukraine are understood to have 196,000 active personnel and 900,000 reservists. Russia have 900,000 active and as many as 2 million in reserve. Russian forces moved 3 miles closer to Kyiv between Thursday and Friday, according to a senior US defense official. The capital city's mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, says half the population, around 2 million there, have fled since the invasion began as Russian troops close in on the city. He addressed the city via Facebook, saying the capital lives under the threat of invasion.
The utility services are working. There is warm water, light, internet in the capital. Most of the pharmacies and grocery stores operate, but the capital lives under threat of invasion. Therefore, we continue together with the military, territorial defence forces, to take care of strengthening Kyiv. We provide our defenders with food, equipment that comes with help from friends from Kyiv and Ukraine. We are getting ready to give a fight to the aggressor who is breaking into the heart of the state.
Vitaly Klitschko, the mayor of Kyiv there. In Kharkiv, an elderly grandmother who survived the Leningrad siege is among those who have been stranded amid frequent artillery fire. Alevtina Shanina is 91 and moved to Kharkiv from Russia in 1957, together with her husband, who was serving in the army in Ukraine. Now, she is bedridden with heart problems. Her daughter-in-law, Natalia, says before the Russian invasion, Alevtina could communicate, but that she is almost unresponsive now. Earlier this week, an explosion hit the courtyard, blowing the windows from the 3 floors under her apartment. She says she is unable to get her mother-in-law down the many flights of stairs into a makeshift basement shelter when the air sirens ring.
I feel inhumane anger from the fact that Alevtina began her life in Leningrad under the siege as a girl who was starving, who lived in cold and hunger, and she's ending her life in such circumstances. There were fascists there, and there are fascists here, who came and bombed our buildings and windows. If they turn off the heating, how can we speak to such people? What sort of defenders are these? Who did they come to defend?
Natalia there with her mother-in-law, Alevtina. Now, the UN Refugee Agency says that since the war began, 2.5 million people have been displaced. A train carrying 700 refugees from Ukraine is here seen reaching Hanover from Poland. Tajana Seal, who was working as an interpreter at the station, said that people arriving there were feeling tired and traumatised. Toys lined up at the station, a welcoming sight for the children arriving, awaiting the next stage of their journey. More special trains are expected to follow, according to the authorities. Refugees reaching Hanover would be taken care of and registered before being taken to other areas. People travelling here with all they have, desperately looking for where to go next. In Russia, consumer giants, including McDonald's, Coca-Cola and Starbucks, have this week joined the list of firms halting business. McDonald's said it was temporarily closing roughly 850 restaurants in Russia, while Starbucks also said its 100 coffee shops would shut. The moves from all 3 businesses come after mounting pressure on companies to act over the war. All 3 said they would continue to pay their staff in Russia. The owner of Facebook and Instagram has said it will now allow users in some countries to call for violence against Vladimir Putin and Russian soldiers. Meta says it has temporarily made allowances for some violent speech, which would usually break its rules. The company said that it won't permit calls for violence against Russian civilians. In response, Russia called on the US to stop the social media giant's so-called extremist activities. Now, on the outskirts of Kyiv, in the midst of war, a wedding. This Ukrainian couple, who've been together for 22 years and have an 18-year-old daughter, decided to formalise their relationship by getting married on the defence line. Lesia Ivashenko left her job when the war with Russia started last month and joined territorial defence forces to defend her district. The city's mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, and his brother, boxer Vladimir, came to congratulate the newlyweds. And just before the break, a moment which has been seen by millions after being shared online. A bunker falling silent as Amelia, a Ukrainian child, begins to sing a tune recognised by children across the globe.
И забудь, что прошло уже не вернуть. Отпусти и забудь. Новый день он
Amelia there, and reaction here from Broadway star Idina Menzel herself, the original performer of the song, saying, "We see you, we really, really see you." Newspaper The Sun later reported that Amelia, seen there, completed a gruelling 2-day journey to Poland and is now living safely with her grandmother. The World This Week continues after the break. We'll be looking at the UK's response to the war in Ukraine in a week when President Zelensky himself addressed the Commons. More in just a few minutes. Hello there, welcome back. You're watching The World This Week from the London Live News team. A review of the main international stories that have broken over the last 7 days. Still to come before 7:30. The UK's response to the war in Ukraine, plus extinction fears for mountain bongos. Will take you to Kenya, where conservationists are attempting to keep them protected. First though, Ukrainian refugees who have passports or ID cards will be able to apply for UK visas online from Tuesday. Priti Patel announced the change in the Commons on Thursday, saying the move has been done with the approval of the security services.
From Tuesday, I can announce that Ukrainians with passports will no longer need to go to a visa application centre to give their biometrics before they come to the UK. Instead, once their application has been considered and appropriate checks completed, they will receive direct notification that they are eligible for the scheme and can come to the UK. In short, Ukrainians with passports will be able to get permission to come here fully online from wherever they are and will be able to give their biometrics once in Britain. This will mean, Mr. Speaker, that visa application centres across Europe can focus their efforts on helping Ukrainians without passports.
This came as further sanctions were enforced by the Prime Minister. Chelsea FC owner Roman Abramovich was sanctioned by the UK for his links to Putin. He is one of 7 oligarchs who have a collective net worth of around £15 billion to be hit with fresh sanctions. They'll have their assets in the UK frozen. They're banned from travelling here, and no UK citizen or company may do business with them. The list also includes billionaires Igor Sechin and Oleg Deripaska, both seen as allies of Vladimir Putin. Boris Johnson said there can be no safe havens for those who have supported the invasion.
I think people in this country can see that people connected to the Putin regime need to be sanctioned, and that's what we're doing. So what I've always said is that we will continue to ratchet up our sanctions as this goes forward, as Vladimir Putin intensifies his aggression against the Ukrainian people. We've taken the powers to do that, and that's what we're going to do.
Boris Johnson there. Well, earlier this week, MPs gave a standing ovation to President Zelensky as he gave a historic address to the Commons, appearing via a live video link from Ukraine. He thanked the UK for help so far and asked for the government to do what needs to be done. Also this week, in a speech in Washington, D.C., the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss said Russia's invasion of Ukraine shows that the era of complacency is over. Addressing a think tank, she said aggression, such as that shown by Vladimir Putin, can never again be allowed to grow unchecked.
We thought that peace and stability were inevitable, not something that we had to work and invest in. Now, those illusions have been shattered, and we are paying the price for those years of complacency. Russia built its capabilities in plain sight, violating its commitments and acting with impunity in Georgia, in Crimea, and beyond. We knew what Putin was doing. We had the intelligence, and Putin announced his designs on Ukraine in public. He set his intentions down in black and white and put them up on the Kremlin website. But it was difficult for any of us to believe. Well, we believe it now. The world has woken up, and the era of complacency is over.
Distrust there in the United States. Well, this week people gathered in Trafalgar Square in a demonstration against the invasion. Zoriana was one of those taking part.
It's not only Ukrainians anymore. So many international people, British, Kazakhstan, Italy, Lithuania, Norway, US, Hong Kong, many nationalities which stand up as well for Ukraine, as well for the values that we are standing up.
Those pictures from Trafalgar Square. Valentina Butenko is studying politics at the University of London, and she's been in Ukraine. Having now returned to London, she says it's taking time to readjust.
I will be honest, it's not only surreal, at moments it's also slightly painful because, you know, just being on the streets where you see people walking about their daily lives with cups of coffee in their hands and chatting and laughing and going anywhere they want, with anyone they want, and being able to meet any friends, that kind of ability to experience life in such a carefree way, and it, you know, the thing that strikes me most just is this sudden sense of security I understand everyone has there. That there's no question of safety. There's no one here for a second thinks about, well, in a very practical sense, death on a moment-to-moment basis. So that has been quite difficult for me to see, and in a way it does offer hope for what I hope Ukraine will come back to soon. But it is also, when you come from a war zone where every moment you're fearing for your family's safety, and you can't walk on the streets because there's air sirens blaring every 2 minutes, and you hear explosions, you know, every hour or so. That is very shocking. And for me personally, you know, sometimes I still struggle to just walk out in the open streets because, you know, mentally I may understand that I'm safe, but physically my body it can't quite accept the sense of safety, can't understand that nothing's going to fall on me or no one's going to shoot at me out here. So this has been quite a surreal experience, and I'm hoping that one day soon this will become normal for Ukraine too.
Time now for some other stories from across the globe this week. The actual number of deaths due to the COVID-19 pandemic may be more than 3 times higher than official records suggest, according to a new study. It's estimated that more than 18.2 million people may have died because of coronavirus by the end of December last year. This is despite the official COVID death toll indicating that 5.9 million people lost their lives between January 2020 and the end of 2021. To the US now. In North Carolina, Duke University doctors say a baby is thriving after a first-of-its-kind heart transplant that came with the bonus of some immune system tissue implanted to help prevent rejection of the new organ. The approach is in a very early stage, and it's one possible method scientists are researching in hopes of inducing what's called immune tolerance to a transplant.
This transplant was done in the summer, and we've actually waited to announce this because we wanted to make sure that Ethan's immune system was responding. And sure enough, he is developing his own immune fighting cells, these T cells, and you know, we're very excited about it.
It's awesome. Something that we never thought was going to happen. Just being honest, the way that he was in the hospital, it was an amazing feeling bringing him home. The look on my daughter's face, you know, she was old enough to understand that, you know, her brother was in the hospital, but she didn't understand why. And it was really hard to explain why. And just the look on her face, you know, bringing her brother home and spending time, and, you know, it was amazing.
In Kenya, these sparse plains are home to the mountain bongo. Characterised by their stripes, they're a type of antelope, and conservationists are warning that there are currently less than 100 left in the wild today. Here at the Mount Kenya Wildlife Conservancy, mountain bongo come to be fed, and efforts are underway to prevent their extinction.
Verify that there are less than 96 bongos left in the wild. And that is very alarming, because if you put that in perspective, you are having rhinos which are almost now maybe 80 times the number of bongos, around 80 times the number of times the bongos are here. You look at the elephants, we are now in tens of thousands of elephants, but the bongos, we are talking about less than 100 individuals left in the wild.
There we are, hopes for the mountain bongo. And just before we leave you this morning, over to France, where the happiest place on earth, Disneyland Paris, has been marking its 30th anniversary with a big celebration and a few faces you might recognise.
I actually can't believe it's the 30th anniversary at Disneyland Paris. I'm 34 and I feel like I just remember it always kind of being here.
The first time I ever came to Disneyland Paris was with you.
Yes. It was actually one of our first dates.
Yeah.
So it was a good way for us to realise actually that we've been together for 5 years.
Well,
so,
I didn't know if it was 4 or 5.
We
Now I
didn't
know it's 5.
It's 5 now, yeah, we know.
Thanks, Disney.
There's that feeling at the end of a day when you've been in Disney where you're carrying your kid
Yeah.
back. And I love it. I mean, it is so painful. My arms ached so much carrying the kids back to the room yesterday, but I love it because I remember being the kid and that exhausted feeling when you've just had the best day ever.
There we are, a little bit of Disney magic this Saturday morning. And that's all for The World This Week with Alicia Edwards. We'll see you at 7 next Saturday as we round up the biggest international stories for a global city.